He's the Man of Steel, even more than the Man of Steel. Here's a look at McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the new 52 Cyborg Superman. After Flashpoint, Superman's uncle Zor-El escaped Krypton's destruction thanks to Collector of Worlds Brainiac. Subjected to cybernetic augmentation that deranged his personality, Zor-El became Cyborg Superman, Brainiac's scout for a stronger species in the universe. He attempted to conquer Earth, battling Superman and his own daughter Kara Zor-El, but somehow escaped the black hole doom that befell Brainiac. After surviving the rebirth event, Cyborg Superman reinvented the dead Kryptonians of Argo City and again attacked Earth, only to be defeated by Supergirl and Superman. 1 part Kryptonian, 2 parts Brainiac. What's the worst that can happen? Before we find out what happened, let's take the tape measure and see how tall the new 52 Cyborg Superman stands. I actually found this guy over on Amazon. For a while, he was in my sights, but unfortunately, the prices that this guy was going for online, we're talking $60 to $90 online. Well, needless to say, I wasn't going to be paying that stupid money for this figure, as good as he is. Finally, though, like I said, Amazon came through and had a big sale after Christmas. This guy was able to scoop up with a bunch of other DC Multiverse figures for about $25 a piece. Superman is going to stand, in this case, about 7 3/4 of an inch in height, translating, though, to a figure that's about 19 centimeters tall. Maybe not of the same universe, no, but at least we finally have ourselves somewhat of a reign of Superman. Here's what Cyborg, Zor-El's Cyborg Superman looks like, along with Steel, Eradicator, and also Superboy. Now, I think up to this point, we don't have any other iterations of these, although I believe it's been announced we are getting ourselves finally a classic Superboy, and I hope the rest of the reign of Superman follows suit. Speaking of suits, here's Supes. Here's what the figure looks like with the DC Multiverse Gold Label Collection Superman, with now the cloth cape. We just recently had a look at him here on this channel. And of course, if you're going to be talking about the reign of Superman, you have to make some mention as well. Here's what the figures also look like, if I don't knock everybody off in the process. Here's also what they look like with a towering Doomsday. Nothing got knocked over. Let's hope, though, Cyborg doesn't get knocked over when we look at the accessories that come packed along with him. The figure first includes a trading card. The trading card has the new 52 version of Cyborg Superman, so it's a little bit different from the one that we saw from the 90s. I do like the look of Cyborg Superman, and it still retains a lot of the design of the character had back in the day when I was, of course, reading The Death and Reign of Superman. On the back of the card, though, one of the longest reads, boy, that took me some time. The read-up, though, also listed above it, his real name is Zor-El. So if you wanted to pause and suffer a similar fate as mine, you can certainly read it for yourself. But I mean, I've already done that. I've done it at the beginning of this review. Let's put that card off to the side. It will be going into my sheet protectors shortly. The figure also comes included with a flight stand. Now, while he doesn't unfortunately come included with any other accessories, at least though they jazz things up by including a flight stand. The flight stand includes 2 parts, so of course you got your regular base. You don't have to necessarily attach this piece either. If you wanted to just leave it on its own, the peg still is there to attach onto the bottom of the figure's feet. There still is the DC logo down below, so it's a serviceable enough stand. I used it at the beginning of this review. But if, again, you want to have the 2 pieces connected together, there's a little lip of plastic right there, and there's a little slot right here. Take the 2 shapes, connect them, of course, together, a little bit of a snap required on your part, and finally got yourself a flight stand. Ta-da! The flight stand does have some adjustability. This top piece does rotate up and down. So if you want to have them in flight, you just basically keep the loop down. If you want to have them floating, you basically bring the peg up like this. And this does also open up both sides. And so basically you just take yourself your figure. Yeah, I know, he doesn't have a cloth cape. And this just fits around his waist. So again, if you want to have him levitating, I don't know if I would necessarily have this guy flying. When we did look at Superman earlier in this week, I had at the end of this review, kind of that review at least, I had the Action Comics Superman in flight. I think I'd rather actually like to have the Cyborg Superman sort of just levitating like this. I might just do a little bit more, obviously, with what I got with the hands right now. But, you know, I might just end up doing that. Let's just move this off to the side, though. And I'm sure we will bring it back for the final looks of the figure because, of course, that's the only thing, unfortunately, that comes included with him. Cyborg Superman. Let's talk a little bit about this guy, shall we? What is little left of this guy? I mean, basically, he's augmented to death here, literally, by Brainiac. It does make, though, for a rather interesting looking Cyborg. Now, Cyborg Superman, though, again, the problem that caused me to delay getting a review like this underway was just the price of what this guy was going for. Still, there's online sites that are still stupidly selling this guy for $97. I kid you not. I wasn't willing to pay that price, even as good as Cyborg Superman turned out, but at $25, the price that Amazon was offering him, yeah, I can certainly get behind a cool-looking figure like this. He looks, again, enough like Cyborg that I don't feel I'm bothered by the fact that we're pulling this from the pages of New 52. He still has the lower half of his jaw completely missing here. I mean, who really did think that Cyborg Superman was going to be the original Kal-El? My vote basically was on Eradicator. But the look of Superman was quite impressive, so much so that, he's lasted the test of time. Has various different looks over the pages and the years of the comics, but sort of, again, has retained somewhat of a very similar look. Superman's face, again, what was left of it at least, you've got now the red eyes, which I think work really quite well for this figure. The lower half of his face, well, again, he got like an endoskeleton similar to a Terminator. Painted really well, though, I will say, in silver. The one thing about the silver, though, is there's not really anything in the way of a wash to it. So whatever we're getting treated to silver, that's the only color we're getting. Maybe a little bit of a wash of black could have helped to bring some of those details out. They have certainly scuffed up the symbol with a little bit of black there. And I do also appreciate the fact that they added some texturing to the yellow behind it. The emblem is a good size, too. It's very similar to like the original Action Comics Superman, where the emblem took up the majority of his torso. So when we look at his cape, now the cape is a rather interesting thing because it consists of, well, it looks like it's two pieces. The front half pieces look like they were molded to his torso, but yet though the back half of the cape, and I think this is correct to the comics, the back half looks like it's a separate piece. And it is, unfortunately, though, because this was still the time that they were making plastic capes for these figures. Yeah, unfortunately, it does have plastic for the material that they chose. But again, like, the plastic cape still works well. They've got some nice little tears and ripped away sections to it. It's all torn and tattered down below there as well. It's like a really neat looking cape. I don't mind at all that it's plastic. Fabric, I know, is really, again, the way that we're going with a lot of the multiverse figures now moving forward. But plastic, there is still something to be said. I mean, it's got a nice form to it. I mean, it sits pretty close to his body, granted, but it still has a really nice form. The back of his body, by the way, just as much detail that is to the front. Again, you've got a combination of silvers and blues. There's just a little bit of red traced in there as well. You got the Superman emblem, for example. It's suggested there for the belt. And you also got some additional red down below, sort of giving the suggestion of boots. One of the notable things, though, that I like about Cyborg Superman is while he does have just a standard-looking arm, standard-looking arm, there's definitely, though, a combination of, again, the metallic body underneath and then the, like, similar Superman suit over top of that. One can't help but overlook, I mean, how could you even overlook this giant clawing hand that he has on the other. The way they've posed this, I mean, it kind of just looks like he's reaching and he wants to grab your soul. Love that. These are actually made pretty soft in plastic, so the actual fingers themselves have a little bit of, I should say a lot of give to them. And a decent-looking figure, at least the figure's arm. Unfortunately, though, because he's using the larger arm like this, the figure unfortunately only has just a single hinge on his elbow here, while the figure's elbow on this side does still get a double hinge. I don't think it necessarily needs to have a double hinge on this side. I mean, it still does exactly the thing that you probably would have just... I mean, I guess if anything, you probably would... If those that could make the argument... If a double hinge was maybe given to this figure, you could, if anything, brought the hand a little bit closer to his face. But that's probably the way I'm going to have this guy displayed on the shelf. Oh, wait, no. Going to maybe just bend the knee a little bit, and I'll have this guy floating. Love it. Now, for the figure's articulation, we're going to go kind of back to the basics here, back to where we started this review. We're going to start with his head sculpt here. So, Cyborg Superman, Zor-El, does have a ball joint that allows at least the head to rotate all the way around. It hinges down really far down, a lot lower down than I was expecting. The head can also look up. So if you do want to have this guy in a flight pose, the head actually will give you enough clearance to do that. As for the arms, whether you want to use this arm or you use this arm as the example, they both rotate all the way around. They also hinge out at about a T pose. Even though he has all these extra spikes on the tops of his shoulders, at least they are far enough down on the shoulder that you can pull off somewhat still a complete perfect 90 degree. The only thing, again, that the figure is going to be a little bit less on this arm. While he does have a swivel in his bicep like this one, he only, again, it has just a single hinge on his elbow. Hands do rotate all the way around. This giant hand does hinge back and forth there too. And while this hand, unfortunately, only just has the closed fist, he doesn't have any other swappable options available. But he does have at least a double hinge on this side of his body. As for his upper torso does have a good, generous ball joint. He does have one of those cases, again, like where the trunks are using a softer plastic, so it does unfortunately leave a little bit of a gap space. You can see where like his abdomen ends, and then the rest of his lower torso begins. But at least that does give him some clearance when it comes to rotating his abdomen area. This, again, is using a pretty soft plastic. Try not to squeeze. Stay away from his groin if I can. The legs split out quite easily. You can take the legs and move them forward and move them back. There's enough space as well to allow for a swivel there at the top of the thigh. Nice double hinge on the knee. And again, you've got your articulation there in his ankle, back and forth rocking. And again, you got yourself the toe articulation there too. I don't think there's really anything I would have really changed to Cyborg Superman. The coloring for the most part is really good. You can really see, like with the blue, it looks like they've painted the blue over top of a darker color. So like there's a little bit of areas where you can see like the blue is not as finished as perhaps it could have been. But the rest of the Superman, though, the Cyborg Superman, looks stellar. At one point, I wanted this figure so bad that I was actually kind of even tempted to pay the price that I was seeing for him selling online. And then I realized, like, just wait it out. Sooner rather than later, I'm sure this guy's going to get marked down. And of all things, I just decided to check out what was going on over on Amazon. And yeah, Amazon had not just a sale on Cyborg Superman, they had a sale a whole bunch of DC Multiverse figures, which probably is why you're going to be seeing a whole lot of them coming up onto this channel. And even though, again, like, it's only going to be a temporary stand-in, I feel, to have these guys on display as the Reign of Superman, because I know ideally they're not the true classic look to the characters. I mean, like, look at the look of Eradicator, for example. He doesn't look at all. Well, he's got the glasses. And he's got the way that the emblem goes into his cape. But there's nothing there at all that really reads like the Eradicator Superman other than those two places. Of course, we also got ourselves Superboy. Steel is really the one that's kind of more the most classic of looks. And then again, the classic look, why not bring in the Action Comics version of Superman? The Cyborg Superman, for the price that I paid, I'm happy now to finally have this guy in my collection. I probably would have been stung a little bit to pay a lot more for him, so I would say don't pay 80, whatever the price was going for. I mean, to go on eBay, this guy sells, I think he's even now starting to mark down on eBay, but at one point, stupidly, he was going for $70 to $90. Don't pay $70 to $90 for him. Pay, though, closer to $25 to $30, the standard price for DC Multiverse figures, because I think the figure's well worth it. Boy, this flight stand's having to work overtime here. Not just with the additional weight of Cyborg Superman, but that also the waist clip doesn't go completely around his torso. I feel like if you're going to include a flight stand like this, it has to go with characters that it will fit. That if it has to go around a broader frame like a torso like Cyborg has, I feel like you almost have to need to retool a brand new waist clip. You don't have to tool everything from scratch. The bottom base can still stay the same. The adjustable neck, well, the neck piece at least, can be exactly the same. But maybe make longer waist clips so that in a case like a Cyborg Superman, for example, or any other figure that's broad like this, it fits better around the figures. Like, I'm literally just sort of wedged him against it and hope that just lady luck alone, he's not going to fall while we're talking and wrapping up the review for him. Wrapping up a review, though, for a Cyborg Superman involves me talking about a lot of details that went into the sculpting of this figure. From head to toe, I would have loved to see what this guy could have looked like with the original casting black and white. Or a lot of times when they first make the molds of these figures, they cast them in gray plastic, sort of just to kind of get an idea of what they're going to be looking like. I would love to see what this guy could look like, maybe without paint. And even like while I'm thinking about that idea, maybe a signature collection release of this guy, where when we've gotten like accent edition black and white figure releases, usually they're black and white, and then there's one thing about them that are glowing. What a color. And I was going to say red, but that red would have been the color I would have chose for an accent edition. Just imagine, if you will, this guy being all black and white, and then the only thing that's red is the symbol on his chest, the cape on the back of his body, and those glowing red eyes. If they are going to be releasing, though, an accent edition, if they aren't, though, I think that's a great idea for more use out of this mold. Because you like to think, again, with a mold this good, he's not just going to be released a one-time only. What do you guys think of Cyborg Superman? Let me know down below in the comment section. And also, if you guys have picked this figure up, what was the price, if you're willing to admit it, that you paid for him? No, again, there certainly does make the valid argument. And a good example is Cyborg. Shop around. Because not every place is going to be selling this guy for the same price. If you go to one site that's selling him for way too much, don't settle on that price. Shop around, see if you can find it at a better price elsewhere. And sure enough, that happened to me. I went around to a couple of sites and I saw like $70, $90, as high as this guy has gone. And then I just happened to go over to Amazon, and Amazon was selling this guy and are still selling him for around $25. I think, I may have actually paid around $27 for him. But again, not a bad price to pay for a figure this cool. Again, what do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you guys also did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid by hitting it with a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, but also, you can also stick around because we may be wrapping up things right now with an augmented Zor-El Superman, but there will be more DC Multiverse reviews coming your way for the rest of this week. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.